Hello, my name is Ila Chandavarkar from Cambridge Ethnic Community Forum or CECF. I'm with my colleague Louise Tan, who is the Development Officer for CECF. We are a charity based in Cambridge working primarily in the field of race equality. This presentation considers ways to reach all people with characteristics that are protected by the Equality Act by making discrimination against these individuals or groups illegal. Discrimination is illegal, for example, on the grounds of race, age, disability, religion or belief, sex and sexual orientation, etc.
In this short presentation, we will look at some concerns that may affect implementing EDI and suggest some possible solutions. This is a guide. We suggest that you review the ideas outlined here and decide what solutions work for your organisation. You can find out about concerns within your organisation by consulting your staff, volunteers, trustees and service users for their views on this topic, for example, through a survey. To accompany this presentation, you will find a transcript with links at the end to all the guidance material we refer to. We will start by looking at some common concerns one by one and suggesting possible solutions. Please note we are not putting concerns in any priority order. You can look at these and decide which ones are the most relevant for you.
The first issue is time. Organizations often give lack of time as a reason for not doing more about EDI. We are often so busy delivering services that it is hard to find time to reflect on what we do, who we are engaging with, and what we need to do to address EDI gaps. Making time to reflect and identify key issues is essential, not just for EDI, but also for ensuring a quality service. The solution is to formally manage time by developing an EDI timetable and slotting in dates and times for reflection, leading to actions to be taken. In part 2 of this resource, we will have more on action plans.
The second concern is information collection. Work out what data you need to collect to help you see which groups are not adequately represented in your trustees, staff, volunteers and service users. It is helpful to use the categories mentioned in equalities legislation, for example, age, disability, race, religion or belief, sex and sexual orientation. You can add other data categories if they are important to your organisation, for example, those on a low income or those with substance abuse issues. This is sensitive personal data and needs to be collected with reference to confidentiality and data protection guidelines to meet the requirements of data protection legislation. There are links to help with this shown in the transcript accompanying this recording. Compare your data to published information about your community, such as the latest census data for the area. For example, Cambridge is one of only 13 places where men outnumber women. Is this reflected in your organisation? You don't need to follow local statistics rigidly. These are just an indication to show if your organisation has underrepresented groups. When you have collected and reviewed your data, decide what you will do to reach a particular underrepresented group. For example, in race terms, you may find your groups are not evenly distributed. Your service users may include people from different Black and minoritized ethnic or BME groups, but your trustees are all from the white community. You can then decide what is practical and feasible to do to recruit BME trustees.
Another consideration is how we may view EDI. We all know it is important, but somehow never clarify where it sits in terms of our organizational priorities. Often EDI goals are something separate and not connected to business or organizational goals. It is useful to look at the core purpose of your organization to make clear the link between this and EDI goals. We give an example in the next slide.
Google's mission statement is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Their linked equality purpose is to be committed to continuing to make diversity, equity and inclusion part of everything we do, from how we build our products to how we build our workforce. This means the Google goal of organizing information and making it accessible and useful will have an EDI lens through their approach to underlying work on products and workforce. There is another example showing EDI as a core value under the guidance links at the end of the transcript.
Another issue is money. Whenever there are discussions about EDI, there is an assumption that this will involve spending money. In this present climate, we know all organizations are struggling for resources. First, we need to be clear how we interpret EDI. EDI is not about spending money on a small minority. It is ensuring that as ethical and effective organizations, we are truly open to all and we benefit from that diverse reach. If there is a need for resources, for example around access, plan how you can achieve this. Look at the access needs of your organization and fundraise for any essential measures needed. You may even find a new route in raising money. For example, there may be businesses that would respond positively to an appeal to fund access. However, you don't need to wait for funds to improve EDI practice. You can start by looking at what can be done without huge expenditure. Improving access in EDI terms is understanding what inadvertent barriers there might be and dealing with these. So even if you don't implement all measures, you can do an audit on access barriers and what you can do to resolve these. Then you can action the changes that don't cost money. For example, do you have complicated written information explaining what services you provide? Could this be put in plain, easy to understand English or provided as a recording? Look for creative solutions. For example, are there other ways of running recruitment to ensure there is no bias? This could include taking out personal details such as name and age from applications when shortlisting, sending interview questions 2 hours before interview, giving information on what you look for when interviewing, etc. Creative solutions can make a real difference without costing huge amounts.
Another issue is that by making changes to bring about EDI, there may be some disruption and conflict. For example, if new volunteers and service users come in with different needs and issues, will that disrupt present service users and how services are delivered? If trustees work well now, will the inclusion of people with different perspectives mean that changes? Solutions to these are not confined to EDI and are helpful for any disruption caused by change or growth. In terms of managing change, it is important that the organisation publicises the core principles and values that it will not change. For example, many women's organisations believe in delivering services in a peer learning, skill-sharing environment because they believe all women are similarly disadvantaged in a patriarchal society. This is a core principle that will not change, even if the organisation changes or grows. In terms of preventing conflict, it is good to have a code of conduct that spells out how everyone in the organisation is expected to behave, not just for EDI, but for organisational health. This means that harmful behaviour, such as a lack of respect or malicious gossip, can be easily challenged. The code of conduct should also have a section on how you behave if you disagree with other views. The code of conduct may not be enough to prevent conflict, which is ultimately up to the trustees to resolve. It may be helpful to have a dealing with disputes policy for trustees, which clearly recognises some of the grounds that cause disputes and how these can be dealt with.
In building policy or guidance on dealing with disputes, it is worth identifying some of the causes. Here are some examples. A difference of opinion on EDI priorities or action. Dominance of an individual or small group of people in the charity's governance that obstructs EDI practice. Undisclosed personal or private benefit or unmanaged conflicts of interest affecting EDI practice or transparency. Poor behavior inside and outside the boardroom, misrepresenting trustees in their EDI views. Not seeing EDI as a trustee responsibility. Work out the action you could take for each. For example, action could be training sessions to understand the context of particular groups facing discrimination, or advice from a representative of a group working with a particular protected characteristic group. Once you do this, you can see if you can generalize in a policy. For example, resolving disputes through external advice or training, or making it the responsibility of the chair to remind trustees of the code of conduct if discussions get heated. We have included information on dealing with disputes in the guidance links. The examples given here are specific to disputes around EDI, but a general policy on dealing with disputes would help with this.
The last issue we would like to talk about is the one that many groups present to us. They have tried everything they can think of to improve representation and it hasn't worked. We have the following suggestions. It is useful to try an exclusion exercise. For example, think about publicity you present or services you run and intentionally think of what you could do to exclude a particular group. When you see what you can do to exclude, check to see if this is happening in the organisation. It can be difficult to think about what you need to do to promote inclusion, but easy to think about what you can do to exclude. When you do this, you may find you are inadvertently carrying out certain practices that would exclude, or you are not doing things that would help inclusion. It is also useful to get advice and suggestions from someone with lived experience of a particular characteristic. One organisation we know found that when they got advice from a wheelchair user, they had successfully managed wheelchair access into the building, but there were many problems impeding access that remained within the building. Lastly, people are reluctant to raise a concern or complain, and you do need to know if there are equalities issues. Look at how you can collect this feedback anonymously to encourage people to report concerns.
It is crucial to work out how your organization benefits from effective EDI practice. We all recognize that this is ethically the right thing to do, but do we recognize the other benefits to the organization? Business research by companies like McKinsey & Company and Deloitte have evidenced these benefits, and some of these are summarized on this slide. These are wider and more effective organizational reach, meeting the legal requirements of the Equality Act, better retention rates, greater productivity, higher client satisfaction, greater creativity and innovation, and better problem solving.
In summary, issues such as time, money, and making EDI a priority can hinder the implementation of effective EDI practice. The key to moving forward is making time to review what you're currently doing and how you can move forward. It's not possible to do everything at once, so prioritize a group or area to start with and go from there. Establish what you plan to do and timetable this in an action plan. A plan will support you in reflecting on and implementing effective EDI practice. We talk about how to develop an action plan in part 2 of this video.
For further information, please see part 2 of this video, which covers the basics of EDI practice, policy and action plans. A link to this is available in the guidance links section. You can also contact CECF at cecfenquiries@cecf.co.uk or Cambridge CVS on enquiries@cambridgecvs.org.uk.